everything in hospitality is a transferable skill. So I think that that is a huge piece to keep in mind, learning how to communicate with your guests, learning how to communicate with your fellow employees, and learning how to also stand up for yourself and voice your opinion. And so if you were starting out and you want to earn more and you want to grow, first off, voice it, say where you want it to be going so that your leadership team can help you and can help guide you there.
Emily, thank you very much for joining me today and today's episode of OysterLink's podcast. For those of our audience who have not heard about you, would you mind introducing yourself for starters?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure working with you up to this point, and I'm really excited for everything that you and your team is doing. So for those that don't know me, my name is Emily LaRuffa, and I've been in the hospitality business for 2 decades. Well over 20 years. Started off many years ago in the beginning as a bartender and worked my way through the whole front of house until really stepping into management about 10 years ago, where I started off as a bar manager and then a bar director role, and then went into more of the operations side of a general manager and a director of operations. At about a year and a half ago, I stepped back from operations and said, okay, how am I going to make a bigger difference in this industry? And that's where everything, my culmination of the 20 years and everything, especially that I've been doing in leadership roles, I said, let me start my own hospitality consulting company so that I'm able to help more, have a longer reach for helping more restaurants than I would be able to when I was just at one operation. So I'm the founder and CEO of Oracle Hospitality Consultants. And that is, I offer multiple programs. I know we'll probably dig into that as well, but I just want to help more than one venue at a time. And when I was in operations, that's what I had, I was focusing on one venue at a time. And the last venue that I was at with Danny Meyer was 2 full restaurants and 7 event spaces, squaring over 40,000 square feet, a very large venue. And so I just really wanted to be able to say, okay, instead of just working here, let me go ahead and help many more businesses. So now I'm able to simultaneously work with different companies and to achieve their highest level of potential.
Wow, your journey is really, really inspiring. Even though I did my research and everything, but hearing it from you, it's just amazing. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Let me go back in time a little bit. You have a degree in pre-medicine. So what inspired you to shift and actually join the hospitality industry?
Absolutely. So I did. I started off when I fresh out of college. I was like, you know what? I want to be a doctor. I really want to make a difference. So let me be a doctor. And so I started as a pre-med major. And after a certain amount of years with that, I also, little history of me as well is I was a dancer, since I was 3 years old. And so there was a dream of mine that I said, I want to move to New York City and be a dancer. And so I knew that if I wanted to shift and be in the arts, that I needed to step away from wanting to have a career that would have taken me 12 years of schooling in order to get through. So that's kind of what led me to the city initially, and throughout this whole time, as I said, I was always bartending, working in hospitality, working in front of house, different roles. And I moved to New York City when I was 22 years old to be a professional dancer. And I did that for a couple of years until I actually injured my knee and ended up having knee surgery. So that kind of was my big shift in my career of going from bartending into more management about 10 years ago, was when I realized, okay, I'm not going to be able to follow this path. I've been doing this for the last 10 years. Do I want to continue this? And that was a really big question I had for myself. And I was actually in hotel business at that time. And I said, I've been doing this for so long. This is what I want to be doing. This is a different way that I can help as well. If I'm not able to be a dancer and be in the arts world, that I want to be in the hospitality world. Those are the only two worlds that I knew growing up. And so, that's kind of what led me to where I was and what shifted with that. So yeah, kind of just a crazy story of just shifting gears, and going with the flow of life.
I actually love that because, and I'm pretty sure that this is just stating facts at this point, but a lot of people get into hospitality by accident, and they end up loving it and staying there for the long run. So, how would you say is the best way to attract young people to join the hospitality industry? Is it presenting them with a career path? Is it presenting the big figures that you can earn once you're in the management position, or do you have another approach to that?
I mean, my first approach is I always want to meet everyone where they're at. And so, of course, especially being in New York City, there were all different walks of life. Everyone who is pursuing something with schooling or, photography or, arts in general. That was a very big career path for many that started off that way, and also just utilized being a server, as a way to supplement their income while they're continuing doing auditions. And so I always, like I said, I always wanted to meet everyone where they were at, but show them that there is a potential for a path of what they're doing that can be brought into the hospitality world as well. There is so much of your personality that needs to come through. And most of the best managers that I ever had working for me were in the arts world at some point, and then they made that transition for whatever reason. They went from being acting into being more of a writer, but then really fell in love with the organization and talking to guests all the time and working with other like-minded individuals in the restaurant industry. And so I always approach it of, okay, what do you want to do with your life? But let me show you what this can look like for you. And it's a combination of both, because in our industry, there is a little bit of a gap in the sense that you can really grow on the hourly level and then become a captain, become a bartender, become a sommelier, and really earn incredible earnings. And that is definitely a path that many choose. And then when they do go into management, there is a shift, where it's kind of, you have to put your work in, and the money isn't going to be exactly what you might have thought it would be, but it can be. And so my job as a leader is to say, what path do you want to go on? Do you want to be on the culinary side? Do you want to be in the management side? Do you want to be restaurants? Do you want to be more hotel? And I will always help show them that path of what their career can look like. And really, I say, do you want to become a director? Okay, it's my job to help you in that role, in that path to getting yourself into that dream role that you have. And a lot of times it shifts. It's not always, I never thought I would be in the shoes that I'm in. I always was like, I'm going to open my own restaurant and, my own bar, and, I want to stay in hotels. So it's always a constant shifting in our industry, because there are so many incredible opportunities at hand. And so that's where I always just tell everyone, be open-minded. You never know where it's going to take you. And so that's my role, is to hold on to your hand and help show you that there is a path. But again, I will always meet you wherever you're at and help you make sure that you are not just learning what's in your role, but what's learning in the role next. And so that it really is setting you up for success at the end of the day.
Oh my God, I wish that you were the one holding my hand when I was choosing my career path. I have a feeling that I wouldn't have, made the turns that I have made. But anyway, it's a part of the learning process.
Of course. It brought you to where you are. And everyone's journey is completely different. And you have to go through all of those obstacles and the different roles. I mean, the amount that I would when I look back at my resume and, not everything is fully there, but it was for a reason. And as long as you're learning the most out of everything that comes in your path, that's what counts, because everything in hospitality is a transferable skill. So I think that is a huge piece to keep in mind, that, when I just recently had a, manager that was a general manager come to me and say, why did I spend the last year of my life on this? And I said, it's going to help you get to where you are. I promise you. You may not have loved, the company that you're with or the role that you were doing, but it's helping you mold what your path is going to look like. And so just soak it all up, soak up in every single restaurant that you're in, everything you can learn, because you never know what the path is going to lead to.
Amazing. So I just wanted to ask you about the transferable skills. Like, what would you say are maybe 3 or 5 biggest transferable skills that people kind of can take either from hospitality or when progressing from, a front of house position to a management position?
Absolutely. I mean, this list could really go on. I think one of the key elements is effective communication. That is something that everyone struggles with, at any given level, but learning to communicate with your fellow, I'm sorry, this is Meadow. She loves to join in on my calls. So come on, I know. She just used to be on my lap all the time. Effective communication is something that you need to have with your fellow employees. That is an extremely important piece. Learn how to communicate in the moment. High stress levels, if the food isn't coming out on time, now you're going to have upset guests. So learning how to communicate with your guests, learning how to communicate with your fellow employees, and learning how to also stand up for yourself and voice your opinion with your leadership team as well. So I think effective communication is an incredible skill that if you jump in on it at the beginning of your career and you really listen, that's the first part, is listening to others, reading the room, listening to your guests, reading what their body language is telling you, so it's not only just verbal, but also nonverbal communication that is extremely important to learn at any given level. And the stronger that you become with it, it's only going to help propel your management trajectory course for you. So I think effective communication is one. I think empowerment for me is something that is extremely important. And so if you're on the floor, how can you, let's say you're a server as an example, if you can help and empower one of your service fellow employees, maybe it's, a back waiter, and you help them learn the role, help them teach them what you're doing. It's only going to empower them to want to be better. You're going to inspire others. And I think that empowerment is something that I really hold dear to my heart, because there were so many years that I wasn't given a voice and asked my opinion. And then all of a sudden, in certain companies, they were like, Emily, what do you think? And I'm like, whoa, wait, me? Are you sure? And it just shifted of, okay, my experiences matter. And so if you learn that as an hourly employee or as a manager, even if you're thrown into the management role, if there is one element that you can learn as well as empowerment and learning how strong it can be to not only empower others, but also yourself, that will also help bring you to the next level. And again, it can be all of these skills, can be brought into any other industry. Like I said, listening. Listening is such an important, powerful piece as well. If you don't listen and you're the one constantly speaking, you're not doing your job. My biggest thing whenever I was a new leader coming in is my guidance for myself was, Emily, listen and be a fly on the wall for the first 30 days. Learn how everyone's doing everything. Ask everyone's opinion before you start jumping in and, flipping the Rolodex and your notebook and saying, we're changing all of these things. That is one thing that no one has, welcomes with open arms, as someone who's a micromanager. And so that's also another skill that I think is one to avoid, so learning about how to be an effective leader and listen and communicate and then empower others. I mean, they all kind of tie in together, but I think if you can master that in and of itself is something that is extremely transferable across any field that you're possibly in.
I completely
agree. Like I said, I could go on and on, but those are a couple key elements that I think are really important.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing those. And those literally are the skills that we all need in all our jobs. Okay. So you touched on something that's quite important to me as a feminist and activist. How much space is there for female leaders to actually voice their opinions? And as a female leader who can serve all of us as a role model, what would be your input to a new female leader in a new position, how to establish themselves as a leader?
Absolutely. I think as a female, we always have to keep in mind that there are these stigmas of if I say something one way and, a male says it the exact same way, it's going to be received differently. And so learning that shift or learning to understand that that's how our world operates, in certain ways, I think is something that is crucially important in order for women to become successful. I had to let go of the idea of, that my voice was invaluable. Of course it was. I looked back on everything I learned and, I really soaked up who I wanted to be as a leader. And so I say, and what I'm really proud of is that my last management team, I had four female leaders on the team. And I loved it, and because I was able to just really hold them by the hand and say, it's okay. Your voice can and should and will be heard, and just the way that we go about it, I think is important. I think I never raised my voice. That is something my team always knew about me. They would never know, that was just not a point of communication that I would use, yelling or, the kitchen language. That was not in my leadership style. I believe that if you, as a leader, lay out the expectations, then you can hold everyone accountable. And so the way that my brain works is lay everything out, lay out exactly what you want everyone to do. Make sure you're very clear. And then all your job, continues to be is holding people accountable. And I mean, the amount of times that employees, when they knew that they would mess up and they'll be like, okay, we have to have a conversation, they would sit down and go, okay, I know what I did. Let me just tell you back. And I'm like, okay, how would you handle it differently next time? And so I always came from it as, my nickname was always Mom, like, Mom, I'm sorry I disappointed you. That was always the ongoing joke in any of, the operations that I was running was always, we don't want to disappoint Mom because that look that she gives, she doesn't need to raise her voice. It's just I've disappointed you. And so, but in order to get to that point, you just have to be very clear and you have to be transparent about what your expectations are. And especially as a female, because if you just assume that everyone can understand or read what you're thinking, that's something that will completely hold you back in your career. And so it's lay everything out, be very honest from the get-go, and then from there just holds others accountable. And so I think that's something as a female, I think is extremely important so that you don't need to, come off in any way that is yelling or raising your voice or your tone. You just set the expectation and everyone understands exactly where you're coming from. I think I have a little bit more of a calmer approach to it, but I think it's been extremely effective with my team members, whether they were leadership roles or hourly roles as well.
I actually like that it's a very practical thing, and not many actually speak about it. So thank you for sharing that. I think that a lot of our female audience will benefit from your advice. So let me now ask you, when you're helping your clients now or previously when you were hiring, what were some red flags when hiring staff and what were some green flags? Like, how can a person really stand out from the crowd?
I think the most important thing is I turn your resume over and I don't go based off of that, because I do believe that if someone is coming with all of this crazy experience or they're embellishing on all of this experience, they might come in with the attitude of, I know it all, my way or the highway. And so I would always look at it and go, okay, let's have a conversation. I never like to use the word interview or meeting. I always use it as connect is kind of my key term. That was something that I've used for the last couple of years. And I find it's much more approachable, that it's not putting this idea in someone's mind of, oh no, like I'm being interviewed right now. So it's, let's connect on a human level. Let me find out, let me just get to know you first and foremost. And that's the first way that I would start any interview is tell me about yourself, but not about your experiences. Yes, I can see that you have been a bartender for 15 years and I can look at your resume and guess if these dates are correct. I would always just want to get to know someone as a person, because I think when you ask someone about a team dynamic and how they would handle the situation more so, so that's a piece that I would do is I would explain, I would say, here's a scenario that happens on a nightly basis. How would you handle it? And I think that's a more approachable way, one, to get people to kind of get their mind in the game, because, I don't want them to feel nervous. And whenever I do see that as well, one thing I do as a leader is say, it's okay, don't worry. We're just having a conversation. This is just a one-on-one conversation. Like, let's put this aside. We could talk about your experience, but I just really want to get to know who you are as a person, because at the end of the day, with hospitality, it comes down to who they are. What are they, like I have said before, are they effective communicators? Are they team players? Are they going to listen to one another? If I have a conversation with someone who has been, let's say, a captain, and they say, oh, well, I just want to yell orders at everyone and tell them what to do, that's a red flag for me. That's showing me, okay, this may not be the right person on the team, because that style does not work for me. If I promote teamwork, if I promote everyone working together as one team, no matter what level you are, and getting your hands dirty, no matter what level you are, the phrase that if I ever heard in an interview of that's not my job, the interview would be over at that point. I think that ego is the one thing that I look for, and is the biggest red flag for me. If someone has an ego saying, I know it all, I can do this better than you, I don't need other people to help me, that for me is a very big red flag. But if someone talks about how they can help others, and they may say, I don't really have the experience, okay, that's fine. I look at it like, we operate differently here than any of your other establishments. So it doesn't matter what SOPs they had in place, what policies they had in place. What matters is that you'll be able to hop on board here and you'll have an open mind, and that's one of the biggest characteristics that I look for, is someone who has an open mind, because I was always the leader that said, listen, I'm going to throw this idea out there. I'm going to throw it against the wall, see if it sticks. If it doesn't, just all I ask is give it a couple of weeks to see if it works. If it doesn't work, I'll be the first to say that I was wrong. There's no such thing. Making mistakes means that you're trying, and you're trying to constantly change things. And if it doesn't work, that's okay, And so when I'm having conversations with anyone new coming on board, that is an extremely important point that I look for. And then also in my business, when I'm looking to see if the client is the right fit for me as well, is if the red flags with that are, no, I know everything. I know it all. This isn't wrong. Like, I don't understand why this isn't working, but I know it all. I don't need guidance. I don't need, I don't want to change things. Change, we have to just grab with two open arms, if you want to grow, and if you want your business to be successful, if you want it to become profitable, if you want to reduce staff turnover, and you want to attract the best talent that is out there, then change is, and having an open mind is going to be the key to helping you get all of that. And so I think that that's, an important element of how I approach conversations, whether it's with a client, whether it's with someone I'm interviewing or connecting with, as I like to say. And those are, I really kind of just put them into two different categories at that point of, there's too many red flags. This wouldn't work, where our personalities are too different that if they're not open to things, if they're not open to change and they're just stuck in their ways, then this isn't the right venue for them. There might be another venue or another consultant that might work better with them. And I'm happy to refer them to somewhere else as well, because I always looked at it like, at the end of the day, if I'm not giving you the right information, that's the most honest, transparent in communication and clarification of what my expectations are, then I can't expect the same from you, And so I think that's a really important piece for me.
Let's go a little bit back in the past, and then we're going to jump shift to your business and establishments nowadays. So back in the days, what were some go-to tips to get more tips? Because that's one of the biggest things that our audience wants to know is like, how to increase my tips. What should I do?
Absolutely. I mean, first and foremost is have an open mind to learning constant knowledge. Soaking it all up. If you're a back server and you're saying, I want to learn about the menu, I want to be able to sell the menu. I know I'm not in that role yet. Let me continue to strive to be a better and more knowledgeable employee. I think that is a really big and important piece, because you may be quietly doing it on the back end. Your leadership team is watching. And so if you were starting out and you want to earn more, and you want to grow, first off, voice it, say where you want to be going so that your leadership team can help you and can help guide you there. I never hold anyone back. I never say, you're the best in this role, I'm keeping you here. If you want to continue to grow, that's my job. My job is not to hold anyone back. And so I think it's constantly learning, learning from others, watching how your fellow employees operate, and learning what the best approach is, and let's say you're a back server and you may not be a revenue driver like a server or a bartender. You can still be a part of that. Most restaurants operate, in tip pool forms. So if you're giving a better experience, one, for the people that you're working with, your fellow employees, then their job is only going to be easier to be able to spend more time with their guests. And so it's kind of this full circle idea of, if you help those next to you, then everyone's jobs will become a little bit lighter, because everyone's working together and saying, this is what I need. And then everyone's going to be able to spend more time with their guests. And then if you meeting your guests where they're at. I am a big believer in upselling, but again, that is also, you have to be able to have the knowledge in order to upsell, or say, what's also okay is say, I don't know, let me go find out for you, and let me go talk with the chef, or let me go talk with the sommelier, or let me go talk with the bartender, and let me just find out what might be the best for you, as a guest. If they're saying, I don't know what I want, if you don't know, it's okay that you don't know. Just ask for help. And so I think that's one thing as a guest that I love, when someone says, I'm not quite sure, but I want to make sure that you get the right information, so let me go find out for you. That just shows that you care. And as guests, we just want to know that we're being cared for. That is the reason why we go to restaurants, and bars, is to have a conversation with someone, but someone who's genuine and someone who cares about what their needs are. If you have also being self-aware of something that I also see too, is if a server is too on top of their table, and is constantly interrupting the conversation, whether they're having a business conversation or, a couple's on a date, and you're not reading the nonverbal cues of, we're good, just give us a few minutes. Like, I will give you the eye contact if I need something. I think that is an extremely important piece as well to learn, are the nonverbal cues, so that you can read what your guests are looking for. What are they there for? Is someone coming up to your bar and they just put their head down and in a book, or nowadays in our phones? Do they want to be left alone? Do they want a few minutes of peace and quiet? And then maybe as, the night goes on, then they'll want to have more of a conversation. So not only is it about meeting your employees where they're at, but also meeting your guests where they're at. And I do believe that if your guests feel like they were understood without having to say what their needs are, that will go above and beyond. And so if you're looking to increase your tips, those are small things, small adjustments that you can make. And they're difficult because you need to make them over and over and over again. but those are extremely important pieces that you need in order to make your guests' night more enjoyable, that they feel like they're heard and they feel like they're having a great time. You're there to throw a party. And so what is that going to take? What does that party look like? It may not be the crazy firework party. It may be more of the quiet, they're coming here for peace and quiet party. And so learning those nonverbal cues, I think, is extremely important. And that in and of itself is where the tips will be increased, automatically, because your guests are getting what their needs, their needs are getting met by how you're acting, by how you're responding to what they're giving out to you.
Amazing. So just one last question from the past. As someone who has been a server and a bartender, what are your tips to keep your physical health? Because I know that that's something that's often forgotten in this industry and people just keep on pushing. So what would be your go tips? Because you look gorgeous, you're an accomplished woman, you're a mother. So what could you share with our audience?
Absolutely. I think voicing what you need to your management team is extremely important. As a leader, what an important piece that I constantly would be striving for, not only for my employees, but also for my leadership team, is the work-life balance. I think post 2020, we have come into a new world where it does matter. Everyone is looking for that balance now. And so they are looking for, how can I be the best at both of these worlds? And our industry is such that we do spend 80, 90 hours working. And that it's extremely draining. And I will be the first person to say, I have thrown my shoulder out bartending, because I wasn't physically taking care of my health. I have injured my knees, by doing that. So you have to, one, take care of your health. And if that means that you have to speak up for yourself and say, these double shifts of working 14-hour shifts, it's not working for me, to be able to have that conversation with your leaders and hope that they really hear you. And hopefully they have the leadership team that understands and listens and is open to that communication and also understands it too. But if the leaders aren't getting that work-life balance, then they're not going to provide that as well. So again, I think it starts from the top of what that culture looks like from the top down. As, like you said, as you were asking, as a server, as a bartender, how can you need to prioritize being able to take time off, being able to disconnect. I think it is a little bit easier in the sense that leave work at work. And I make sure that is important, that both the employees understand that, and also the leaders. A rule that I always had, and I will say I struggled to follow it myself, and I would have to stop myself like in mid text message or email back on a day off that I had, was it's extremely important that you take that time for yourself. And if that means that you don't check in as a leader or an employee until 2:00 when your scheduled shift is, that's good. That's what I want, because that's what's going to help you have a work-life balance. And because too many people drain out way too young in this industry. And so if you're looking for longevity, it's really being in a culture that does not only preach it, but actually lives it. Because I have them with the companies that have preached it, but then say, oh, no, but you need to be answering me at 7 a.m. or 3:00 in the morning, even though I want you to have the time off. So it's extremely important on all different levels. But as someone who is in the hourly role, being able to set your expectations and be clear on what you're looking for and what you need is extremely important. And as a leader, I always stressed, we have to listen. Yes, sometimes I understand this industry is tough. I'm not going to be one that sits here and says like, hey, please, can you help me out? Like, I'm in a little bit of a bind or short staffed, because that always happens in this world. But I think being clear and transparent about how long this is going to be, what this process looks like, everyone's going to be more on board when you have big changes that your restaurant or your bar is going through. So speaking up and making sure that your needs are being heard instead of just letting it cultivate and I mean, go to the gym, go do yoga, go for a walk, whatever it may be. When it's your your break time, step away. I think that's also important, is make sure you step away and you get that half an hour, whatever may be allotted to you at that time as well. So it's a balance. But if you're honest and you're clear and your leaders are clear and transparent and expectations are clear, then there really isn't room to wonder, and assume and then live with that anxiety of, am I going to lose my job if I take a day, or whatever it may be like.
Amazing. Thank you so much, because I've spoken to, different people in the industry, and a lot of them really struggle, or at least have learned it the hard way.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, burnout. I think that's the number one reason why people leave this industry is because of burnout. So how can you take care of yourself to make sure that that doesn't happen?
Exactly. Okay. So now, as a consultant working with many establishments, what would you say are some of the current biggest struggles that, are like a common denominator amongst the establishments that you work with?
I don't want to be a broken record, but I think something that I do see everywhere is not laying out what the roles are, what your expectations are. And if we're starting from the top down, if your leaders don't know what their job is, the companies that I've walked into and I go, okay, where are your job descriptions? And they're going, what do you mean? Like, okay, well, where are your checklists of what the opening checklist looks like, what a closing checklist looks like for a manager, for an employee, for all different roles? What does your structure look like? And they're going, I haven't had time to do it, and I think that is something that is holding many restaurants and bars back, is that they get stuck in the grind instead of understanding that you need a strong foundation for your restaurant to be successful. And that means you need to have clear goals, clear and honest job descriptions, SOPs, what your policies are, I think is extremely important. And the expectations for each role, what your sommelier's job is going to be, what your bartender job description is going to be, what a service manager's JD is going to be. So I think it's very important, that the most important piece. And that is something that I see most restaurants and bars struggle with, of we don't have the time to do this. And so that's my role as a consultant, to come in and say, okay, give me all of your information. Give me all of your policies, your procedures, your SOPs, your steps of service. Give it all to me and let me help you make sense of this so that you can go back to your team and say, all right, let's try this. Everything is going to be crystal clear moving forward, so everyone knows exactly what their role is from the time they clock in to when they clock out. And that eliminates the amount of, it eliminates micromanaging to begin with, because you don't need to anymore. You don't need to be on top of your employees. You can give them that level of trust and empowerment when you know that their knowledge is there. You're testing them on their knowledge. You're testing them on their service. We do a lot of mock service, especially with openings, but are you doing, are you having trainings? What is your educational, what is your education process looking like from this point forward? All of investing in your employees and investing in your leadership team, to me, are extremely crucial points. So what does that look like? And are you listening? One of the elements within my employee revitalization program is conducting a survey where it's, let's find out what your employees are feeling. And most of the time they feel that they're not being heard. Their needs are not being met. They keep asking for, more jiggers behind the bar. They keep asking for tools in the service station, and they're not getting the tools in order for them to be successful in their jobs. And so not having their needs met and not feeling heard is the number one piece. So that just shows that the communication is completely lacking. And so my job is, let me come in, let me take everything that you've given, let's shuffle it around, and let's structure it so that you understand where to go with it. your team understands where to go with it, and then your leaders know how to hold everyone accountable for it as well.
Wow. Okay. Amazing. I cannot end this conversation without asking about the increased cost of operations for establishments. It's a hot topic in the past couple of months. So what would be your tips for our restaurant owners and hotel owners, how to kind of balance that out and actually still keep profitable? Now, I know that this is a big layered question, but at least some guidelines.
Of course. I think another big factor that I have found with restaurants, and when I walk in and as a consultant and say, okay, let's go through your P&L. And I really focus on your prime costs. So everything within your control is your top line revenue. Do you understand what your turn times are? Are you looking at what KPIs, what key performance indicators are you measuring? How often are you measuring them? And then are you also letting your management team in on that as well? Are you training your management team to understand what a guest average check looks like, what a turn time looks like, what the average amount is per 2-top or 3-top or 4-top, and how they can improve on that. And so for me coming in, and I look at it like, let's look at what you currently are doing and let's highlight all of the areas that we can work on. Because yes, we can't change what the costs are out there for us. Can we maximize it? Yes, we can. Can we look at, is that the right purveyor to be working with? Absolutely. Do you know what your COGS are? Do you know what your menu pricing actually breaks down into? A lot of times a slight change within a recipe really makes a difference, or change of one ingredient from one purveyor to another can make a difference. But the hard part is that it takes a while to be able to do that, to be able to look through all of that information and to constantly not only look through it in the beginning, but then constantly monitor it. And so that's my role, is to come in and say, okay, let's look at what you are currently working with and let's highlight the areas that you're going to be able to make adjustments right away within 30 days, seeing results within 60 days and 90 days. My first step is the first 12 weeks. It's going to be many changes at once. But the first thing that we need to do is we need to take all the data in now when we're talking about the numbers and actually look at where there are areas of improvement needed. And so again, within one of the elements, one of the business programs that I offer is the Prime. It's a business optimization program where we look at all of this, where we break down what your menu costing is, where we break down where your things are coming from with purveyors. If you're talking about wine, are you maximizing your case drops? Are you working with the brand ambassadors and leveraging what your menu can look like based off of that? Where you can say, okay, if I offer 2 of your spirits from your portfolio, will you work with me? Will you give me case breaks? Will you give me this? That is out there all the time. Just many people don't know how to go about it. And so my job is to help guide you into making better business decisions based off of what you're currently doing. We're not starting a business from scratch. So let's fix what you're currently doing. Let's make the adjustments, but let's also then teach your leadership team how to do it, because that is one element that I think many restaurant owners struggle with, because they don't want to open up their books for their leaders to understand and really be like, oh, wait, hold on. Are we not doing well? Tell them you're not doing well. And let me help show them exactly where the steps are that you can have opportunities of growth, and then teach them. Everyone wants to learn, especially when they're in leadership roles. They want to learn. They want to learn how a P&L works. And so why are you not opening yourself up to them and taking that time to be able to teach them that? If you teach your leadership team how to run the business, the loyalty that they're going to feel and the pride they're going to feel when changes are starting to happen. And then, of course, you can incentivize them. You have your bonus structure on top of it. You have, okay, let me give you paid time off for it. There's different ways that when you start saving money, when all of your prime costs start going lower and everything at the bottom line, your profits start going up, let everyone share in that wealth in that journey. Because if you have everyone invested in what your concept is and what you're doing, and you're teaching them how to do it, they're going to feel so much more pride and empowerment by being able to be a part of that process. And so that's something that I think is extremely important when I speak with the restaurant owners. And it ties back into what I said in the beginning of, if you're not open to change, and making changes and adjustments and letting your team in and teaching them what you know. That's the biggest thing that I learned was I was never afraid if someone was going to take my place. Like, no, there's so many, I want to see you learn and grow and become a general manager, become a director of operations, whether it's within this company or another company. That's why I do what I do at the end of the day, is to watch everyone improve and get, reach their dreams and make them all possible. So if you open the doors as a restaurant owner and you start doing that, and let me help you with that, because I know it's a tremendous large piece and you just don't have the time for it. That's the biggest struggle. So let me help you really understand your every step, every line, line item of your entire P&L statement, so that you can learn the areas of growth and the areas of opportunity. And then again, let everyone into that. Let your employees into what an average check looks like and how they can improve it. Because then again, if they do that, then their own earnings, their tips are going to be increased anyways. So let everyone jump into this, and enjoy the process of making your restaurant thrive, is really what I think at the end of the day.
Amazing, Emily. Thank you very much. And the last question for today is, what was the one thing you wish you knew before joining the hospitality industry?
I wish I knew what opportunities were out there for me, because I really didn't. When I first began, I didn't know that there was this whole culture within the cocktail world, where you have the world's top 50 best and Tales of the Cocktail. I didn't know about all of those of that world when I first joined in my teenage years. To know that there is a world beyond just I'm being a server, I'm being a bartender, that you can actually have pride and make this a career, is something that I wish I knew, because I probably would have embraced it in a different way and with more pride, instead of just saying, oh, I'm a bartender just to make money while I'm trying to pursue this. I think understanding what my career could have looked like. And again, I don't have any regrets, because I was the type of person that I just embraced change and different opportunities as it came my way, because you don't know, everything looks glowy on the outside until you actually, get involved with it. But to know that there is a path for everyone, and you just need the right leaders to help you find that. I think that is something that I wish I knew, that there can be a career for anyone that wants to come into this industry. And it doesn't need to be the burnout career. It doesn't need to be the I'm not making money as a service manager rule. There is a different way that this industry can go about it. And so I think if we were a little bit more open to that, that's something I wish I knew, was that there were many more opportunities available, within this industry, and to make a change, because that's really what I wanted to do at the end of the day. That's why I initially went into medicine. I wanted to help others. So knowing that the hospitality industry does offer that opportunity as well, and it's not just with your guests, providing a great experience for them, but there is a world where you could help others within the hospitality world, I think is something that I wish I just wish that I knew it sooner.
I think that you're not alone with that thought. Emily, thank you very much for sharing your time and your wisdom with our audience. It was a pleasure listening to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been wonderful chatting with you as well.